This is Shanshan from the artist from Shanshan.co. I also do specials on eBay. Today I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to do fake news. So there's this story that came out just today on how Philadelphia, they caught all these priests, Catholic priests, and they've been accused of multiple cases of pedophilia. One was even accused of child pornography. So not only was he picking up kids and abusing them, they're making these tapes of them, right? So it's crazy. So how does this happen? Well, one of the curious things is the creation of the Vatican itself. So originally, back before the 1900s, the Rome actually, from the Vatican, they controlled a huge section of Italy. Now, it kind of goes in flux in history, what they controlled, what they didn't. Obviously, everyone knows Rome fell to the barbarians, and so they just held the churches. But as they slowly Christianized all these barbarians, they were able to gain more and more power and more states. So they were pretty powerful up until the 1900s. So 1900s, who comes to power? Mussolini. Now, as a dictator, he really doesn't really like the power of the Catholic Church. As you know, any good fascist might be Catholic, like Mussolini and Franco. They're probably Catholic, but they want to keep them in their own box. So he basically conquered all of Italy, and then he signed a treaty with the Vatican, because that was all that's left of the Papal States. They were literally reduced from 1/3 of Italy to this tiny piece of Rome that was basically a neighborhood. It's microscopic. And the Pope at the time, instead of just saying to become part of Rome and keep more property, he said, no, I'll give you all this property. I don't care. I just want to keep the Vatican as an independent state. So as its own country, right? So why would they need to have this as your own country? So if you're your own country, you write your own passports. And if you have your own passports that are diplomatic, you have diplomatic immunity. Diplomatic immunity means you can't be charged for crimes like pedophilia. So, makes you wonder, right? Now, another curious thing is, have they done anything else besides all these, huge pedophile cases in the U.S.? There's been other countries, but not only that, there's this curious state of some of the travel documents of the Nazis escaping Nazi Germany back in the 40s. They were helped by the Red Cross and the Vatican. It was kind of a mistake, but on the Vatican side, maybe it wasn't a mistake. I mean, the fascists did give them their last remaining hope of remaining an independent country, allowing them to escape criminal prosecution, right? So why, so it kind of looks like, hey, you give me criminal prosecution and immunity, you took all my land, but I get to keep this independence, and then I can save all the priests from being persecuted, right? Has it ever happened in the past? In fact, it has. In 1554, so this is literally 500 years, well, not 500, 450 years before our current day scandals that are, Wikipedia, and you can research them, right? So this is really old school. This was in that height of Catholic Church power. They had the Inquisition, any form of disrepute, the church was just starting to split apart. They were trying to break apart, and they were going to all these religious wars basically to stay, define who's the power in the Christian world. Similar to nowadays, you have Islam being fought between Iran on one side, Saudi Arabia on another, and they're like, you're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. Let's go bomb each other. So you have Iranians in helping the Yemenis, Saudi Arabians bombing Yemenis, and they're like, oh, we have to keep this out. We don't want to have like the problem Israel has where they have Hezbollah right on their doorstep. I'm like, dude, 100 miles from apart, the water, it's Iran, so they can bomb you right now. And Yemen is like hundreds of miles away, so it's a complete false report by, Saudi Arabia and Iran. But anyway, that's a whole nother ball of wax, right? So those two are basically at a religious jihad war, you could say. And the Christians used to be. But anyway, this book, La Historia de Torres, it insinuates basically this orphan boy. He goes from a knight, and then he goes to a father, or a Catholic father, and then he gets passed around because he's an orphan, right? But during the father's thing, it's suggested in the book very subtly that he might have been molested. Now, that's what I learned in my Spanish class. And if you read it, it's a really funny book. It's kind of like the Huckleberry Finn of the 1500s. Very good. But unfortunately, it was very short, but it's an awesome book. So how come priests can't marry? That's like this guy here online. He's saying, why doesn't the Catholic Church just allow the priests to get married so they don't molest children? It's a valid point, right? This other guy says, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I was told I was going to hell for being gay. I thought it was total nonsense. I knew I wasn't going to hell for being who I am. On the other hand, the 300 priests who abuse 1,000 children are definitely going to go straight to hell. But are they going to be prosecuted? They'll probably just fly to Vatican. That's my take. Now, why, in the first place, this guy's a valid point. Why aren't Catholic Church priests allowed to marry? It would seem pretty reasonable. I mean, that was one of the reformations of when the Lutherans broke free, and then all the other Protestants that broke free, they allowed the priests to marry, and they did away with this Catholic belief of celibacy. But why do the Catholic Church not allow the priests to marry? This is interesting. So, you guys all know Peter in the Bible, right? One of the disciples. Anyway, he was the first pope, right? So the first pope, he had a wife. Because he was a Jewish guy with this new religion called Christianity, but basically a Jewish guy with a slight change on the religion. So, Jewish rabbis, they can marry. This new Christian priest, they're going to marry, right? However, 300 years later, this is when they had the Council of Nicaea. Now, this is kind of where they all formed the Catholic Church. So at the 325, they basically reject multiple books of the Bible. They didn't consider them part of the Bible, and they pushed them off, right? They said, oh, these don't work, this is nonsense, but who knows what was in those parts of the Bible, right? Probably been the part where you were allowed to marry. Or Magdalena was not a whore, but actually maybe the wife of Jesus. Who knows? Anyway, one of the other parts of the Council of Nicaea is they forbid the priests to marry, and they have to get rid of their wives. So why would they institute this? They probably weren't pedophiles to start. If you had a wife, that cuts down on pedophilia quite a bit. But what happens? So if you go in, you're celibate, you enter the church, when you go under the ground, and all your brothers and uncles have already died, unless you've written a will specifically, all your property passes on to the church. So over the centuries, the church amassed more and more and more and more. So they literally have, billions of churches, one of the wealthiest churches of all history, because they constantly inherit all this property for free. So probably they're never going to give this up, because this refutes the whole foundation of the Catholic Church. You get this free property from Catholic priests to join. So not only get all the donation money, and they slowly stack up buildings, and they slowly stack up art collections, gold in their churches. I mean, if you go to the Vatican, you can see how much money they've really amassed. In these poorer churches in Latin America, you're going to see like a shoddy, rundown Catholic church. But that's really kind of almost a front, in the sense that all that money is being funneled, well, a portion of it, small 2%, 3%, was being funneled all the way to the Vatican. And that just slowly builds the top of the pyramid as this really rich amassation of the massivest wealth you've ever seen. So the best guess for Vatican wealth is between $10 and $15 billion. So just in their stock holding, they already have $1.6 billion in Italy. 15% of the whole stock market in Italy they own, basically. They own, so even though they're forced to give up 1/3 of their land, they gained all this stuff in stock and land anyway, so they just got back all their wealth anyway. They have big investments in banking, insurance, chemical, steel, construction, real estate, right? They're basics. And the best part, there's no taxes on this, right? All these churches, there's no tax. You have this huge issue of pedophilia instituted by the church itself to be able to gain and inherit all this property from the church, from all the fathers, which they're probably not going to give up. That's just free wealth they're getting every generation, right? So yeah, they're just gaining all this stuff. Oh, here we go. Here's the quotes. And in the U.S. alone, in 1998, they had to pay 30.9 million payout, and just in 1998 for these sex scandals. And from 1950 all the way to 2007, they paid out a total of $2 billion, and they still have all this money, right? So basically, what you're paying for is tax-free pornography. So why do they exist? Because people think this means something. They literally think, this whole form of, doing this means something. They think that's going to save them, that there's an afterlife. So if they be good and follow the church's followings, they'll go to this mythical place called heaven, which is the clouds, which we fly airplanes through. So there's no heaven. We fly our airplanes through it. That's been proven. We would have ran over God by now. And everyone knows you can't sink in clouds. Parachutists have proved you can just pass straight through clouds, so you're not going into heaven. It just doesn't exist. Yeah, unfortunately, this silly belief is leading to huge cases of pedophilia. So I know that church is directly to blame, but the believing parents that actually push Christianity down their kids' throat, they're actually reinforcing this message and allowing this to happen by believing this is holier than thou. It's not holier than thou. It's just leading to a lot of sex scandal. They should really just probably kick them out of the country. That would be my advice. Why should they get tax-free pornography? Everyone else has to pay for pornography, and especially child pornography. Normally, these people would be sent to prison for years, and these Catholic priests are actually being flown out to the Vatican, and they're diplomats. They escape. Then they're prosecuted by the church, internal judge, by other priests. Other priests that might have been involved in pedophilia are judging pedophiles. I don't think that makes a lot of sense in my book. I'll leave that with you guys. Think about that Nazi connection, but letting them free, gaining the Vatican versus losing it all. And then from the Vatican, they're able to keep that diplomatic immunity, the passports, and the celibacy, which goes back to gaining all of the wealth so they can continually grow every year, every generation, more and more wealth. So it's just, they're basically stacking, as we'd say in finance. They're stacking coin. They're making bank. And in the way, since they aren't allowed to have wives, they come up with this, unfortunately, take advantage of children. And, since the parents believe these are holier than thou people, they don't believe their kids when they get molested by these fathers. Some parents obviously do, but others, they don't. And the kids, since they think all these fathers are, holier than thou, like, oh, then they don't come out, and this just continues in a huge, terrible cycle. My thing is just disallow it, kick them out, close it down. I think having the freedom of religion helps give a temperament. It's been proven during other regimes where they completely got rid of religion, say under the communists. It actually led to worse things than under religion. But obviously a mono type of religion is not healthy. You can see this in Saudi Arabia. You can see this in Iran. There's a lot of intolerance, a lot of brutality related to religious belief. So between the two extremes, you should probably have freedom of religion. However, if they're repeatedly abusing kids, really, should they allowed? No. That's my 2 cents. Hope you guys like it. If you want, subscribe below, and hope to see you guys in the next video.